Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be my worst makeup of 2023. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is going to be my worst makeup of 2023. Now when I say worst makeup, you do need to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. I don't think any of these products are bad, but for some reason these just didn't quite make the cut for me. They just didn't really live up to my expectations for whatever reason, and that's what I want to chat to you about, because I try a lot of makeup in a year and I can't love everything, guys. I just can't. I want to. I desperately want to, but I know that that's not feasible. In case you're new here, you've never seen my videos, then hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences my makeup preferences. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love eyeshadow palettes as a cicatrice and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, then I hope you'd like to stick around. Worst makeup of 2023. I already prefaced in my intro saying, I don't think these are bad. It was just products that didn't quite live up to my expectations. And as the longer I'm reviewing makeup, the more my benchmark for a good product just goes up a little bit over time. And that just means that I just didn't love everything I tried this year. And if you are still interested in these, they might still work for you. I'm not knocking these down. I don't think they're bad quality items, but they just didn't quite work for me. That's the way it goes. I'm in my Christmas onesie today because I thought that would be fun. Plus, I'm feeling a little worse than I did yesterday when I filmed my other video that you've seen so far. I thought I was past it. I thought I had it all done, but I think I was a little over enthusiastic yesterday and I overdid it just a little bit. So I'm just going to be filming my end of year favorites, get them out of the way, and then it's back to the couch and my Harry Potter marathon that I started when I was ill. First things first are the products that I tried that were more base related, that I use to prep my skin before I do my makeup. So primers and setting sprays, those kind of things. And the first product I need to show you is this. This is the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. This is what the product looks like. It is a drugstore dupe for the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, which is very beloved in the makeup community, which I think so many people just love and adore. And that's why I wanted to try it. So this is just a product so many people like, and as much as I wanted to love this, it didn't work for me. I bought it for a full face of e.l.f. That I did earlier in the year, and I was just gonna try some of their more hyped up products that a lot of people have been talking about, and this was just one that didn't quite work for me because it made my skin react. The minute I put this on, my face just started to burn, and because I was trying a lot of new products in that video, I did go back to it once or twice to make sure it was this. Turns out it was this. So after trying this one or two more times after that video, I was like, right, I'm gonna keep it around so I can show it as like a bad for me product at the end of the year. That's why I still have this. But it just wasn't great. So for me, it just didn't quite work. If you love this, if your skin can handle this formula, I'm sure you'll love it. Not knocking it down there. It's more of a my skin issue than a product issue, I think, but this is definitely one where I'm like, I would have loved that a lot more if it didn't make my skin react. And then there's also a setting spray here. This is the Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. And this is actually used up. So that just goes to show, even though I don't love a product sometimes, I will still keep using it until it's gone. Of course, Tilbury, pricey brand, so I wanted to make sure I got my penny's worth out of this, but this was such a strong smelling setting spray, like the floral scent in this, it just gave me a headache every time I used it. And like with the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer, my skin had to get really used to it. The first like 10 times I used it, it again made my skin burn. So I had questions whether I should even be putting this on my face because I've tried plenty of setting sprays that don't do that for me. And then this one did. So that's why I'm like, you know, I really like the idea of this setting spray. It definitely works in terms of what you want a setting spray to do. But with this heavy of a fragrance and the way that my skin really had to go through this like learning curve with it, makes me really question whether it is truly a good product. And then this little guy. This is another product that didn't work for me because it gave my skin, my eye in fact, some form of irritation. What am I talking about? It's the Kaleidos Tone Activator Eyeshadow Primer. This came to me for free as a gift with purchase, and I had run out of my Milani eyeshadow primer that I love. I was like, it's time to try something new. I'll try this one. And I was trying this. I think it was like late spring, early summer. So it was sort of at that point in time where I get very teary-eyed because of hay fever. So at first I was using this and I thought it was my hay fever. But then I knew after a couple of weeks of using this, I was like, this is no longer hay fever because my allergies aren't acting up, and yet I'm still like, I would just get so watery eyes and it would start to get a little bit red. And then I was like, oh, is there anything new that I've been putting on my eyes, like an eye cream or something? And I was like, oh, this thing. So this again, not great for me. If you love this, it's got a little bit of a tint. And in terms of gripping onto eyeshadow, it does a really good job at that. It's a slightly tacky base, which I know a lot of people love. But for me, there's just something in this formula that really irritated my eyes. And my eyes would water to the point where I would just rub half my eye look off of my eyes. So as far as a good eyeshadow primer goes, this isn't it. And then I have two foundation-like products. The first up is the Essence I Heart Flawless Skin Foundation. And this is definitely not because of this product. This is a foundation that Essence launched earlier this year. I think it was in their fall-winter release for 23-24. And I had just not read the label because this says matte and full coverage. And if you know anything about me and the things I like in terms of foundation-like products, then you know that those words aren't matte and full coverage. But I just saw this online and was like, that's great, Essence has a new foundation. Let me try it for my first impression Essence review that I do every single 6 months whenever they have a new line. It does have a good shade match. It's in porcelain, I think, light porcelain even. So shade match wise, it was pretty decent, but this, it felt like one of those drying clay masks on my skin, and I've got pretty dry skin, so that's why I don't love matte full coverage foundations. I like lightweight and dewy because I don't have that many blemishes. I don't have very oily skin, so I have no issues with like foundations looking very greasy on me or they not lasting throughout the day. I think this can be a really great product for people with more oily skin than mine. Also, if you're in your late teens and early 20s, which is the catchment, like the market that Essence is targeting to, not people in their late 30s, nearly 40, like I am. So that's why I think with much younger skin, and if you're more oily prone, this can be a really, really good one for you. So yeah, that's why I didn't love this, but I can see this working for other people if you have a different skin type than I do. Now, without being too harsh, I don't know who this would be right for, but this is the Super Dewy Skin Tint from Revolution. And like with the e.l.f., I did a full face of Makeup Revolution earlier in the year because Makeup Revolution is a drugstore brand that I see release a lot, and I just wanted to see if there was anything in their current lineup that I might like again, because I used to love so many Makeup Revolution products. I think they're now just called Revolution or Revolution Beauty. Like, they have so many sub-brands, I never know what they're called. This is in light beige, and this did not look pretty. Apparently, it didn't have the best reviews. However, around the time I posted that video, there was a Revolution foundation that was going pretty viral, which I think was called like the In Real Life filter or something like that. It was something like that. And there were people who were like giving me flack in the comments for not trying the other thing. And I was like, when I shop a brand, I'm gonna try products that appeal to me, that sound like they might work on my skin. I had looked at that IRL foundation before making the purchase, but it was like medium to full coverage, like a satin finish. Those are just things I know I do not like to begin with. This promised to be hydrating and a skin tint. This is not a skin tint. This is a mousse. This reminded me, like the experience of using this reminded me of using the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. Like way back in the day. I just had a couple of the blushes, I remember. I never had the actual foundation, but it's this really dry texture. Why this even comes in a pump? They should have just put this in a little pot. That would have worked a lot better. So this I really didn't like. I've used it that one time for my Makeup Revolution video. I thought my makeup looked so terrible that I actually washed it off my face straight away and I never went back to it. So in terms of like worst makeup, I did have to give this a shout out for sure. And then I have some concealers in here as well. Another Essence products here. This is the Bright Eyes Under Eye Stick from Essence that they did in their Fall Winter collection. The Essence Fall Winter collection just wasn't quite it for me. It's this really itty bitty thing. You'll see something in very similar packaging in my end of year favorites coming up, because it's not the packaging I don't like. It is very cheap and like very thin plastic, so we know where they're cutting costs. But this was again too dry for my slightly fine-lined, drier under eye area. The stick is also too big to really fit into the under eye, to really get in there. It worked okay if I warmed it up with fingers first, but then I lost a lot of the coverage. For me, the under eye brightener from Catrice, which was in my end of year favorites last year, worked so much better because you have a lot more control and it's a lot creamier. Again, I think if you have oily eyelids, like if you have a very oily under eye, this might work really well for you. It was just a little bit dry and cakey for my tastes. And similarly, the Rose Ink Concealer, I have this in shade LX030. And this was a concealer that was, I think this is actually the first and only product that I have ever tried from this brand. And it's not put me off the brand for sure. I still want to try one of their cream bronzers, possibly one of their cream brushes. I believe they have a new foundation out as well. So they're doing some good things. But this concealer was just a little bit too heavy. It reminded me a lot of the Rare Beauty concealer that I tried, I think last year or the year before that, which was also a little bit too dry and cakey, too much coverage for my liking. This is more like a medium coverage. And just a little bit too drying on my under eye area. It just didn't work quite the way I'd like it to. So that's another reason why this, sadly, I finally got around to reviewing it this year. I already picked it up last year, but I think because the first time I used it to take pictures, it wasn't my favorite. It was just pushed to the back of my mind and I had completely forgotten I even owned it. So I do really like the packaging of it though, but the Rose Ink Concealer, if you have dry skin, may not be for you. And then right before we get to palettes, I have some brows and some cheek products. I didn't try a whole lot of brow and cheek products this year. I was pretty steady with my favorites and I just didn't buy as many things this year. I was far more focused on eyeshadow palettes and foundations again, like I usually am. But Catrice did this, the Magic Shaper Contour Stick. It also has a highlighter side, so here's what that looks like. It's just this little twist up stick, and then it has the contour on one side. I mainly use the contour. I did use both products. The highlighter doesn't do anything. It's not very highlightery. It's just a little bit too much of a putty texture for it to really add any shine. The contour side is a really nice, light enough for me, bronzer shade. So for me, I use this as a bronzer, but I felt that again, because of that slightly putty texture, it was a little bit difficult for me to blend out. So this was not the kind of product where I could go like like dot it around the face, blend it out and be out the door, which is what this product promises you to do. So again, if you have oily skin, this may work really well because I felt it really catches onto your face and it doesn't move once it's on. For my dry skin, it emphasized texture just a little bit too much for my liking, and therefore it wasn't my favorite. And finally, the NYX Thick It Stick It Eyebrow Gel. And I actually quite like this. This is again coming from my empties that I will be showing you later this month. So in January, I always do a end of year beauty empty. So I'll show you all the skincare I used up and body care, but also makeup. So if you want to see all the makeup I used up, then stay tuned for that video. And this product has one of those gigantic doe foots. This is what it looks like. It's a really good product. It's just really dry and it got very gloopy. And because it has like the fibery textures in it, it just clogged my brows. It was not pretty. It just looked like I had so much product in my brows that after only a few weeks of using this, I had to stop using it because it looked that terrible in my brows. Because the product just got a little bit too dry and I got more fiber than I did color. So for me, this also started to smell badly really quickly. This is an issue I have with most brow gels, is that they either get really gloopy really quickly or develop a really strong alcohol-like scent. And then I know it's just time to stop using them. So as much as I liked it, it didn't really last a long time. And this wasn't a cheap product. Like if it's like an Essence product and it's only like €3 at the drugstore, I'm like, fine. But this was like close to 15 euros. I'm like, at that price point, I want to make sure I get like 4 to 5 months of use out of a product like this. And it didn't. I think it lasted me like 6 weeks. Finally, I have some palettes to chat about because eyeshadow palettes are the main thing that I review over on this channel. It's the content I love making the most for you guys. But before we get to my worst palettes of the year, I do want to give a shout out, an honorable mention, if you'd like. It's not that much of an honorable mention if it's in the worst makeup category, is it? And it's these from Oden's Eye. If you know how I feel about these. These are the Christmas palettes that they released last year as limited edition and they brought them back this year. So it's the Christmas Eve and the Merry Christmas palette. The packaging is stunning. I love the color stories on these. Like these color stories that they do in these palettes. I mean, this is the more warm toned one, which is the Merry Christmas. And then of course, I love the cool toned one as well. For the shades we get in here, this is the Christmas Eve. I mean, color story wise, these are stunning. But the reason why these are an honorable mention, and this is why I wanted to feature them in the video, it's because I saw Amy Loves Makeup do a hot takes video where she explained how she loves Oden's Eye because when they send her products as a creator, she gets it super early so that she has like a month before the release date to shoot the content and do everything. But in the same video, she was answering some questions from people who are following her about, her getting comments from people that Oden's Eye isn't what she says it is. And I have had that experience as well. And I think, and I've said this before, I think Oden's Eye is dealing with some batch issues. My expectation is that Oden's Eye doesn't have great batch control between batches. So what they'll probably do is that they create a smaller batch at first to make sure the product is the way they want it. Some of that gets sent out to creators. They show you all the swatches. They show you how beautiful the palettes are. And then when you go to buy it, you buy it from another batch. That's the way I feel with Oden's Eye. The reason why there seems to be such a big discrepancy between many people's experiences and what you might find online. These swatch amazingly well. In terms of like great swatches, I have no issues. But I want things to perform on my eyes. And I mainly want shimmers to perform on my eyes. And for me, the shimmers in every single Oden's Eye palette I've tried, including these and the Jewels and Gem that I tried to sort of give them another chance, have just incredibly patchy, difficult to pick up. I do not get any of the base pigment that shows up so wonderfully in the swatch, but I cannot, for the life of me, get it to translate to my lids. No matter the primer, no matter what I'm trying to do, and I've really started to notice that once they started doing this. I haven't tried all of Oden's Eye palettes So I still love them as a brand. I think they do some really nice things. And if you've never tried them before, they are one of the more affordable, especially if you're in Europe, because they're a Swedish indie brand. And they ship directly from China, which is why I'm suspecting that there might be a bit of an issue there. Like, how often do they travel to China to check whether all of the pallets that are sent out from their facilities there are, you know, performing the way that the initial batch did? I think that's where something might be going wrong. So I've heard a lot of people say that they love the Oden's Eye formula still, that they've had no problems, but I've just had the experience that depending on the batch, you may not get the good Oden's Eye quality that I know when I get it, I know I love them. So that's why they're an honorable mention, to let you know that I have my suspicions, and to see a creator who does get PR from them sort of saying like, hey, I'm seeing this just being said a lot. And she asked her audience if she wanted to, like if they wanted her to buy some of them herself, to then compare them to the ones she got in PR. And I hope she gets around to doing something like that, because that would be interesting to really see whether I'm right or not. But that's my hunch. As lovely as these color stories are, as beautiful as these swatch on the eyes with brushes, these are a little bit lacking. And I did try them in 2023, so that's why they get to go into this video, and you can still buy them. Now, if you know anything about me, then you know that the first brand that is a true worst makeup item for me in terms of palettes is actually a brand that I really enjoy. It's by Viseart. This is their Petite Cool Mattes. I did a trial of nothing but Viseart palettes last April. They were all things I bought over like the Christmas season, Black Friday sale kind of season. And this is one that had just been on my wish list ever since they did them in the bigger palettes. Here's what the color story looks like. And as beautiful as this is, as lovely as this palette is, I think that this just needed shimmers for me to like it. Step one, I just prefer a shimmer over a matte. I just do. But also, a lot of this pulled a lot more gray toned on me than I had expected. Like, it looks like you're going to get browns, then grays, blues, and purples. The blues and the purples pulled gray on me. Like, not the deeper things. Like, these, like, deeper things were fine. But all of these, like, lighter pastel shades, they just all look the same. Whether I used the grays or any of those, it made no difference. So for me, there just wasn't enough variety in this palette. However, I said it in my review then, and I'm going to say it again now. I am happy to have it because I know I can use it to lighten up some of my other Viseart palettes, and their pans are interchangeable. So this is not going to be decluttered. I know I can work this into my Viseart collection in one way, shape, or form. Keep the shades I like, maybe fuse it together with something else. Not sure if I want to do that in 2024 yet, or if I want to keep the palettes as is, but know that you have that option with Viseart, which I always appreciate as well. But this was just not for me. It's not for me. A more recent thing I tried is this. I have to mention it straight away. This is the Kruidvat Sky Like This eyeshadow palette. So I did a video where I tried a bunch of Dutch makeup products, mainly by Kruidvat, and brushes by Hema. And I had been very curious after this Kruidvat line ever since it launched, because I hadn't tried them, and I see them every single time I go into my drugstore. And I was like, you know what, I want to give these a shot. Are they any good? Are there any products in this line? Because it's very affordable. It's sort of like Wet n Wild Essence kind of price points. So nothing is like over 5 or 6 euros. Like, it's pretty cheap. So I was just curious, like, can they do good eyeshadow? And the answer was no. It has 1 or 2 really nice shades over here. Those I liked. The rest of the palette, you can just, it's a bit blah. This looks like it has shimmer. Then you use it on the eyes and the shimmer disappears. These 2 blues do exactly the same thing. These 2 darker shades are exactly the same. It just was very, very meh. I was able to pull okay looks out of this though. Don't think that I couldn't make this work. It worked. If you're in a pinch, if you're in the Netherlands, you're in the pinch and you need something, this. But their eyeshadow sticks are so much better than this. So maybe stick with the eyeshadow sticks. Those were nice, but this palette was not it. It was just not it. Was this the first disappointment of the year palette-wise? No, I think it's one of the other ones I haven't shown you yet. But I had quite a few products this year that I was very excited for to try, such as Vive, which is a brand I hadn't tried before this year. And I bought this, finally came back in stock. I bought it in the Black Friday sales, and I was stoked to try this. Let me show you why. This is the 90s eyeshadow palette. It has these like leopards on the front, and then this is what the color story looks like. I mean, look at that. Isn't that just looking like it's going to be a cool tone lover's dream? It wasn't. Again, because of the shimmers. It only has 3 shimmers. Now, I don't want to knock it down for that. If it has 3 really good shimmers, I can make it work. But these shimmers don't show up. Like, no matter how much you build them, whether you wet them, you just don't get, like, something like I'm wearing today, this, like, high shine effect. You just can't achieve with this palette. And everything in here pulled much darker on me than what it looks like in the pan. This is just not fair skin friendly. This is great if you have medium skin, and if you love mattes, this is your palette. This is like the cool tone palette for people with medium to deep skin. I'm telling you. Try this if you haven't. If you have light skin, stay away. And I was thinking that palette was the first disappointment of the year, and it was this. I actually discovered through going back to my 2022 favorites that one of the Adept palettes that I tried in 2022 was actually one of that year's favorite eyeshadow palettes, the Ninhydrin, which meant that when they launched the Minka at the end of 2022, I was stoked. I knew I wanted to get it. I was like, right, this color story, Adept, I love your formula, give it to me. And here is what that color story looks like. Isn't she a beautiful palette? I mean, color story wise, this still pulls on my heartstrings. But I think if I hold it up close, you can also see that all the shimmers have a similar formula. And that's where this palette goes wrong for me. We get 2 mattes and they're okay, but they don't work with the entire palette. Because we have some warmth, some yellow things here, this blue thing. It has some really pretty duo, like multi-chromes in here. I love the top row with these like cooler tone shimmers. But if you saw my worst makeup of 2022 video last year, you know that I was really knocking down the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palette for having these like poured shimmers that you can only apply with fingers. Guess what formula we're getting in here? Yes. A poured formula that you can only apply with fingers, which I don't mind applying shimmers with fingers. Let me get that out of the way first. But what I don't love about poured shimmers that I can only apply with fingers is that I can then only use one shimmer all over the lid and that's it. So is this a standalone palette for me? No. Are there some really pretty shades in here that I would like to salvage? Yes. Am I going to keep this entire palette as is? I don't think so. I hope this is magnetic. It's quite heavy, so it might be. If not, I can use my little hairdryer method to try and loosen up the glue and like scoop out the eyeshadow pans that way. I'm not sure yet if I'm willing to do that. But I was just a bit disappointed because I loved the formula that we got in the Ninhydrin because that was blendable and easy to pick up with a brush. And I was expecting that same formula to be in here, and then it wasn't. So for me, I had hoped so much more for this based on what other things I had tried from the brand, and this didn't live up to it. And finally, the brand very kindly gifted me some palettes in PR. I'm talking about Alter Ego, and I was so curious, so curious to see whether I would like these. Because the palettes they sent me were all color stories that I have the original palettes to. So I got the Midsummer, which at that time was their newest launch, which is very pretty, but it's the ABH Nouveau. That's what that color story looks like. And then the Goddess, which is the Natasha Denona Gold. And the Coastal, which is their Rose Quartz Huda Beauty dupe, which is one of my all-time favorite palettes. I mean, they're stunning color stories. I know that because I have these original palettes, which is why I own those original palettes. And I have heard people raving about this brand as if it's the best thing since sliced bread, saying how wonderful it is, how much they love it, how much they have such a great formula. They have a great formula for the price point. For around the 15 to 20 euro mark that these go for, it's okay formula, but it's nothing outstanding. If you swatch this, like I did comparative swatches when I did my review, I swatched all the palettes next to one another so you could see, and these don't hold a candle, especially not when you start using them with brushes on your eyes. I mean, halfway through reviewing this, I just gave up on doing looks with it because I was like, The only one that I kind of like a little bit better than the original was the Midsummer. Especially some of the like lighter shimmers I felt looked really nice. But the Nouveau has this like bronzy brown sort of peach shifting kind of shade in it. And nothing like that is in here. So I feel that if you want the feel, the look and the feel of those more expensive palettes and you're on a budget, then go for it. These can be really, really nice. But because I'm just a little bit spoiled. I have the original palettes and I can compare it formula, shade for shade, sticking my finger in, playing with it, especially with some of these like the Goddess and the Coastal are duping two of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. I'm terrible to have to tell you that these just didn't really live up to the hype for me. I don't understand why some people are saying that these are just as good as the originals. I don't think they are. Are they good for what they have to offer? Sure. If you're looking for these kind of color stories and you're on a budget, like I said, go for it. These can be really nice. But if you're hoping to get Natasha Denona Huda Beauty and Anastasia-like quality, you're going to be very disappointed. So that's it. Those were all of the eyeshadow palettes that I wanted to list in this video. All of my worst makeup that I tried in 2023. Again, like I mentioned, if any of this worked for you and you love these products, this is not me knocking them down for the sake of knocking it down. These were just things I tried in 2023 that didn't live up to my expectations or that gave me a rash, which I don't know about you, but that's never a good sign. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video today. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. I will be back very soon with a new video because we have my end of year favorites. So really talking about the best of the best coming very, very, very soon. So if you'd like to stay tuned for more, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.